This episode of Settle the Score is sponsored by Sky Sports. Stream Sky Sports flexibly on Now. What you want, when you want, no fuss. Go to nowtv.com to start streaming Sky Sports today. Hello and welcome to Settle the Score. My name is Harry Durham. The North London derby did not disappoint on Sunday. Eberechi Eze is on an absolute mad one against Tottenham. Listen, a lot of questions to go through. Will Tottenham get relegated? Will Arsenal win the title? Just how big were those 3 points at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium? Joining me this morning is Chris Cowlin from Spurs Chat and Marcy from AFTV. Boys, let's get straight into it then. Marty, kicking off with you, just how big were those 3 points at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium yesterday?
Listen, we had a poor game against Wolves midweek. We all know that was just, it wasn't a good result. Bottom of the table, Wolves. And there was nothing else other than 3 points at 3 Points Lane. We had to go there and do a job, but listen, we did it emphatically. We went there and took them apart yet again, another 4-1, which was, it's results like that galvanised the fan base. There was a lot of people losing their heads on Wednesday night, Thursday, and as an Arsenal fan, if I'm honest with you, it was a bit of a depressing state. But to go there and beat them like that was just a phenomenal result. And it's results like that I think can really help you kick on throughout the rest of the season.
Chris, were you surprised just at the performance of Spurs? I know in that first half, I think it was just one shot, but you were in the game going into the end of the first half. Are you surprised at just how badly it fell in the second half?
Yeah, I certainly like the fight and desire in that first half. Of course, Igor Tudor has come in, replacing Thomas Frank, but it was a really, really painful defeat yet again on Sunday. But, we've got to look ahead now to the next 11 Premier League games. We need to put this one behind us very, very quickly and look to these 11 games. Igor Tudor needs to spend time on the training pitches with this squad. And, let's be fair and honest about it. We have a very, very depleted squad. We've got 10 players out. Some of these players that would be first-team regulars. And, we're really struggling. Yes, of course, there is a lack of confidence. And it is very, never, ever very nice losing a North London derby, particular in the fashion that we did.
Marty, as a gooner, I was outside the away end at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium yesterday. Me being a neutral, me being a reporter as well. A lot of Arsenal fans obviously speaking about the 4 in a row and the possibility. A lot of them were saying that you're going to relegate Spurs. You as an Arsenal fan and how big this North London derby and rivalry is, would you like to see Spurs relegated from the Premier League or not?
Yeah, of course I would. I'll be honest with that situation. The North London derby is the 2 fixtures on the fixture list that as soon as the fixtures are released, I look to. They're absolutely phenomenal games. As a neutral, you watched that game yesterday, and obviously the result was in our favour, but 5 goals, it had everything. It had bite, guile, desire, and it was a live game. That's what you get from those games. The atmosphere is absolutely electric. I would be very willing to miss it for one season, but I'd like them to go to the Championship for one season and then pop back up. And the reason being, if I'm honest with you, there's some shameless stuff that I see from Tottenham fans when they want to throw games. There was like that, remember when we were going to win the league and all they had to do was beat City, and you had your own Tottenham fans that wanted to throw it to stop us winning the league. And I think for that right there, they kind of deserve a bit of pain in the Championship. But again, it's not a fixture that I would want to miss out on for more than a season because I love the fixture.
Chris, what's your response to that?
I feel like Arsenal fans is always about Spurs fans, and they've beaten a depleted Tottenham Hotspur team. And they're celebrating the way that they are. So we just need to concentrate on what we're doing.
If you were to get relegated, though, so I've been a fan that's been relegated a number of times for Fulham, and sometimes it is sort of good for the reset. And you think about how commercially big Tottenham Hotspur is, and away from commercially, just how big, it is a club in world football. But would you ever take the reset of going down into the Championship or not? I can't believe I'm actually asking you that.
Absolutely not. But you're absolutely right. A reset is needed in the summer. But let's be fair about this. You know, many Spurs fans were calling for Thomas Frank to be sacked months ago to give a new manager, you know, a real chance of galvanising our season and sorting us out and, you know, turning us around. And, you know, Igor Tudor now has 11 games to do this. And, you know, when you look at the Premier League table, for instance, Spurs have picked up 4 points in 2026. We are winless. We're the only Premier League side without a win this calendar year. You know, West Ham have picked up 11 points this calendar year. So we are now looking behind us. We're looking around us at the likes of Leeds, Forest, West Ham, Crystal Palace, etc. So, you know, these are really tough times at the moment for Tottenham, but these players at the moment really need to be up for the fight, and that is my message to this Spurs squad. You know, you've got to be up for the fight, and you've got to dig in and dig deep in order to get results. And, of course, that starts with Fulham away on Sunday. But going back to your original question, absolutely not. Spurs should always be a European side, always be in European competition, and we should be fighting for trophies. You know, we only won the Europa League in May.
Chris, I'm going to stick with you quickly, and obviously Randall Kolo Muani scored his first Premier League goal for Spurs, and it was a good finish as well. A complete mix-up at the back from Declan Rice, you know, straight after he did that sort of like keep your head in the game motion. Randall Kolo Muani then scored a second goal, and it was chalked off due to him pushing Gabriel in the back. From what I saw, and you had watched the replays...
You call that a push, do you?
That was... No, I wouldn't call it a push. That's the thing. I have to call it a push, just what it's probably judged by the PGMOL. I thought it was an absolute disgrace of how soft that was, and it could have easily changed the entire outcome of that game, and the referee has ruined that opportunity for Spurs.
Harry, I was on here with you a couple of months ago, and we were talking about the Ekitike one, pushing Romero. And when you look at that Gabriel one, and that was clearly a dive, Igor Tudor was actually making, you know, those signals as though the player had dived. It was a clear dive. It's an absolutely disgraceful decision. Whether it would have turned the game or not, I'm not going to sit here saying the referee cost us the game because, of course, lack of quality, lack of players in this squad. But that was a terrible, terrible decision. And sadly, we've seen so many of these this season. And if any Arsenal fan actually agrees with that, then they're absolutely deluded.
Do you agree with that, Marty?
Look, I'm going to be honest with you, right? I get it's soft. I would be aggrieved being a Tottenham fan. It was soft. But when you put two hands on a player in the penalty area, you're always running that risk, and it's as simple as that. Yeah, it was. It wasn't. It wasn't the toughest of pushes. It was, but albeit it was a push in the back. I would be disappointed as a Tottenham fan, but still, that we got the job done. That goes in. I get it. At the time of the game, it could have swung it, but I thought Tottenham were poor all game. So. To hold on to that as a sort of a game-changing decision when you beat a team 4-1, I don't really think it wasn't a 2-1. That decision didn't change the entirety of the game.
Would have been 2-2 at that point, and Gabriel knew exactly what he was doing at that point. It's cheating at the end of the day.
Yeah, and then we would have scored another 2 goals. So, I get your point, and you are right to feel disgruntled, but. Unfortunately, these things happen in football. We've seen decisions go our way, and in this, and seen them go against us. And in this instance, that decision went our way.
Marty, what do you think will be the deciding factor of your season? You've got to go back up to the Etihad. You think about a couple of years ago when you literally played it out for a draw, and obviously didn't end up winning the title that season as well, and the Carabao Cup final at Wembley. Just break it down as an Arsenal fan. Those 2 matches are absolutely huge for your season, especially with the Carabao Cup final coming first. And I've said it for over the last couple of weeks. If you lose that Carabao Cup final, I could see it all just falling down straight from there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, first we've got Chelsea on Sunday. That's a huge game. You've got to get 3 points there, and then we've got a run of games before that. I agree with you. The Carabao Cup, that's a momentum game. You beat Man City in that. It gives you every chance to then go to the Etihad and beat them there. You lose that, and you lose that badly. Man City are going to fancy their chances, and you could end up losing that. But it's big games like this that titles are decided on. It's as simple as that. We've got to go and perform. We've got 10 games left in the Premier League. Every game is like a cup final, and we've got a cup final, and that's without the Champions League games thrown in, FA Cup games as well. So we've got there's a lot of football to play, and we've got to be up for it. Performances against Wolves, you've got to put them aside, because they will not be acceptable, because if you perform like that throughout this run of games, you will leave the season empty-handed.
Chris, you were linked with Eberechi Eze in the summer, and to see him score the amount of goals that he has, with 5-2 against Spurs, it must hurt, even though, you know, there was such mixed rumours about where he was going to end up in the summer, and apparently it was always going to be Arsenal. But even the way that he celebrated last night, the smile on his face, obviously he scored, he's got a hat-trick at the Emirates, two at your place. But the smile on his face was so cheeky, and I imagined it rattled a lot of Spurs fans.
Yeah, obviously gutted, Harry. When you look at a player like Eze, a real quality player, he's been a quality player for Crystal Palace, and before that QPR, and we all knew the quality, and that's why a lot of Spurs fans wanted the club to sign him. But sadly, we didn't get the deal done. He went over to Arsenal, and you know, it's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh man, Chris, I feel sorry for you. Like, I don't mean that as like in a patronising sense. It might have come across as patronising, but you.
Well, it's depressing.
It is depressing.
Right now.
It is depressing. And you think about the last two seasons. I remember being at your first home game of the season, which was Burnley, and I think it ended 3-0 to you.
Yeah.
And I was there working, and I was like, these Spurs actually look quite proper. They actually look quite proper playing today. And I know it was obviously against a newly promoted side, but it's just been an absolute car crash. And this, I think, the next thing I'm going to bring up really sums it up. You posted something on Twitter last night of Igor Tudor, obviously first game in charge, and he's communicating with Mickey van der Ven, and Mickey van der Ven's not even listening to him. I mean, this is it. It almost seems like the team's poisoned in a way, that these egos have just gotten out of control.
I think it's fair to say that he's only had 3 to 4 training sessions, and he said this in the post-match presser as well. And he also said that, you know, there are a lot of bad habits and there are too many problems at the football club right now. And there are a lot of problems. A lot of problems need to be sorted. But a manager is not going to be given time. He's got 11 Premier League games now to keep us up and to keep Premier League status for next year. But Igor Tudor, on a number of occasions during the Arsenal game, was calling the defenders over, particularly Mickey van der Ven. And I think that when they're used to a certain style of play under Ange Postecoglou, and then very quickly the change was made, Thomas Frank, and now very quickly the change is now made again, Igor Tudor. We've gone through so many different managers. But, you know, let me come back to talking about the Eze situation. Spurs should be always getting in quality players in transfer windows, and I'm going to bring it up. You know, Pochettino in 2019 said about the furniture in the mansion, and every single time we have let a player go out the door, they have never been an upgrade. They have always been a downgrade, and this has been the problem. Transfer windows have been the problem, and every year, year by year, and since moving in that stadium, 6 permanent managers, 4 interim managers. We can't keep going on like this. The football club needs to change the way that they do things. Otherwise, we're going to struggle yet again.
Yeah, that's a really good point as well. I was having a conversation with Abby Summers a couple of weeks ago, and I was saying I can't remember the last time that Spurs signed a player and it sort of galvanised the club. It just doesn't happen. Maybe I'm wrong, but the only person it took me to was Rafael van der Vaart.
Yeah. There's players like Van der Vaart, there's players like Ginola, but when you're talking about an actual world-class player, a world-class player at the time, you'd have to go back to 94, Jurgen Klinsmann.
Yeah, 1994. I wasn't even alive. That's how mental it is. I'm turning 30 this year, and you have to go back to 1994. Marty, finish us off, mate. See us to the end of the show. Obviously, I've got to ask you the question right now, mate. We've spoken about Manchester City, Chelsea at the weekend. Are there going to be any more hiccups in your title defence and title charge? Because you have got some massive games coming up, my friend.
Title defence, you make it sound like we've already won it.
You're top of the table, so you've got to be sort of defending your way, to get that clean slate up there to lift it in May.
Yeah, can I just say something quickly on Eze? Eze loves scoring against Tottenham. He scored 8 goals in 2 seasons against Tottenham Hotspur. It's just he seems to be that player for that game. And fair play to Mikel Arteta for putting him in where he did, and Eze for popping up with the goods. But look, these title races, we've all seen them over the years. There's twists, there's turns, there's ups, there's downs. Are we going to drop points? I'd love to sit here and say Arsenal are going to win the next 10 games and we're going to get 30 points from those 10 fixtures. But the reality of the situation is it doesn't always work out like that. I think there are, if I was honest, there's probably a couple of draws and there could be a loss in it. Will it be enough to get the job done? I believe so. Will we get the job done? I believe we will. I've seen title-winning sides over the years, and this, for me, this Arsenal side feels different. Yes, the Wolves, again, that was a disappointing result, and we've had some games where we've played poorly and come out with the points. Yesterday was a game where we played champagne football. We pressed them through the entirety. There was literally probably a couple of small bad spells, but that was to beat Tottenham 4-1 at home and 4-1 away. That's a very good result. Like I said, I've never seen that. To get that over your North London rivals and really stick it home, and especially to potentially have a hand in putting them into the Championship is a great result. But I'm looking forward to the rest of the games. We've got that City game that the MC had is absolutely massive. It's going to be, and this is what we love about football, these huge games. And it's going to be, for a neutral, this is going to be a fantastic title race. I think it's going to go to the wire, and I think it will probably be decided in the last game or maybe a penultimate game. But it's definitely going to be a fantastic title race, and it's going to be edge of the seat stuff.
This episode of Settle the Score is sponsored by Sky Sports. Stream Sky Sports flexibly on Now. What you want, when you want, no fuss. Go to nowtv.com to start streaming Sky Sports today.